Hey there, my name's Ash from Guerilla Miniature Games. I started the hobby in 1988 when I discovered Citadel miniatures in the back of a series of books called the Fighting Fantasy, like Choose Your Own Adventure books. The first of which was The Warlock of Firetop Mountain. And since then, I've spent about 30 years working in and being part of the miniature wargaming industry. It's hard to say what games I play that I'm not known for. I suppose those would be tabletop games that aren't miniature wargaming related. So I do play a lot of Euro-style board games with my wife. We play a lot of sort of family and group, like party-style card games and board games as well. So things like Carcassonne or Ticket to Ride, you know, the sort of mainstream games like Cards Against Humanity, and all that fun stuff that you play either with your kids or you play when you have a group of people over and you want them to do something that, you know, breaks the ice and gets everybody sort of laughing together. I'm really passionate about miniature wargaming because I think it's one of the few things that young people do or can get into these days, that they have to put something into it to get something out of it. I find for a lot of like the activities and hobbies of people that are sort of like coming into their own interests do, you kind of get it all sort of fed to you and like you don't contribute a lot to the enjoyment of what you do. Now it's not true in everything, but for a lot of things, I feel like the really sort of successful mainstream hobbies, things like online, you know, gaming, where you're sort of fed an experience, you just log in, boot up, and you know your skill in that experience is important, but you typically spend 20 minutes at a time doing something, being told if you're good at it or not, and then reset and try again. So it's like a little ego hit or ego boost for 20 minutes, and you don't really spend a lot of time preparing for or doing it. Now, some people that take it to like a a high skill level, obviously, like with anything, they'll spend hours and hours and hours doing it. But for the most part, I find that the experiences young people tend to have in their hobbies now are very casual. And I like miniature wargaming. I'm really passionate about it because it asks a lot of you even before you go to play it. Just putting the models together, painting them, and preparing to play a game is a big endeavor for a young person. So I think people get a lot out of that. There's math, there's reading, there's all kinds of things that developmentally I think help young people. And so I want to see it flourish and expand and continue to become more mainstream, because I think that it's something that people can get a lot from when they're younger, and to see it grow would be really important to me. I didn't really decide to get into YouTube. I answered an ad for people playing Infinity when I moved back to Niagara region here in Ontario in Canada to play Infinity, and that's how I met the guys at Mini Wargaming. And about 8 weeks later I was working there filming battle reports. And then when I left, I decided I had fun doing that. I like to continue to do it as a hobby. And so I did a crowdfund to buy a camera, and that blew up to the point where it wasn't just a camera anymore, and it was a studio, and it was something that I was like, well, I guess this is something I could do for a living. And it just kind of exploded. So I've always been in the miniature wargaming sort of like industry and hobby, but this was never something that I like set out to do. It just kind of happened to me. So for the future, I think you're going to see me continue to explore miniature wargaming. I'll show lots of mainstream stuff, but also explore more of the independent and smaller size games you might not have heard of, or games that might not even be, you know, from like English language that I can bring into English language, or just from all over the place. So that's kind of my plan, is continue to sort of like dig around and showcase stuff that you might not see otherwise, and of course to continue to sort of like just bring people along with my hobby journey, because that's what I do. I'd be doing this anyway, but I happen to have a camera, and so I'm sharing it with everybody. So that's the plan. Of course, more books. I wrote my first war game this year through Osprey Games, which is Last Days, a zombie apocalypse like campaign skirmish game that I had a lot of fun playing and writing back in 2009. So it's now published, and I've got plans for more of that too. So I guess that's what we'll see in the future. I guess lastly, I'd just like to add a big thank you to everybody who's ever watched one of my shows, because that's how my kids eat Cheerios now. So big thank you to everybody that supported me in the beginning initially, of course, just deciding that this was something that they were excited to see me do. And to every single one of my patrons who, you know, have just, it still blows my mind that this is something that I'm doing. And it's because of them that I continue to make this stuff and put it up online and just sort of like explore and share the hobby. So that's all I'd really like to add. It's just a huge, like, heartfelt thank you. And I'll keep doing this as long as I can.